What's up, everybody? My name is Mike Whitmire. I'm the co-founder and CEO of FloQast, also proudly an inactive CPA. Very excited for today's guest. We have an entrepreneur on the line by the name of Cooper Harris. So let's just hop right into it. Cooper, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your business, your background, and walk us through your journey.
Sure, Mike. I'm so excited to be here. This is fun. So I'm the founder and the CEO of Klickly. Klickly is a SaaS platform. We work with thousands of D2C brands. And as you can imagine, that becomes its own fun accounting thing. So we could talk about that later. But
Yes.
basically to make a long story short, in the midst of my becoming a CEO, I did a kind of 180 from TV actress on sitcoms and daytime TV into the world of tech. And so that was its own very exciting journey. And now this is my third tech company, and we are a VC funded platform. So get to deal with all of that. And we are located in California.
And you're on in Los Angeles specifically,
Yes.
right?
That's exactly right.
And so for those listening, a lot of people aren't aware that LA's become a little bit of a SaaS hub. We're doing pretty well for ourselves in that ecosystem. So there's this odd combination of entertainment and then tech, and specifically some boring SaaS technology going on in LA. So I have a feeling that industry coming together is part of why you were able to make that shift from acting into the tech world. So tell us a little bit more about your acting career. Which shows were you on? And I'd love to understand how you made that transition, and maybe how that skill set helped you in entrepreneurship.
Well, it's funny. I never thought it would have, Mike, but it ended up, I guess, doing okay for me. So since the age of 12, I was obsessed and really dedicated as a very precocious child to becoming an actor. I applied myself to boarding school for performing arts and got in. And my parents were like, "What are you doing?" And I went anyway. And then I studied and got an extra kind of degree in acting from a very prestigious performing arts college. And then went. And the day I graduated, I was on a show called As the World Turns, which is actually
nice.
a show. Yeah, but it was my grandma's favorite story. So that was just a cool kind of entree into the world. And that was sort of a bunch of like TV shows and sitcoms. And then I ended my career very symbolically, like some nice, bookends at Young and the Restless. And I got restless and started getting excited about tech. I started sneaking off to hackathons actually in LA. And that was when I made the jump.
Oh, that's very cool. Did your grandma see your appearance?
Yes, she did.
Oh my gosh, how proud was she?
Yeah, my brother's like, "You're on a soap." And my grandma was like, "Yes," my day is made.
You made the story, yeah, every day. That's like I know grandmas look forward enough to their stories every day, seeing their own granddaughter, and it must have been amazing.
It was fun.
Dreams come true.
That's right.
Living vicariously through your grandchildren. There you go. You made it.
Yep.
And so we actually have a former actress internally at FloQast. She's on our sales team. She was a Broadway actress and moved to LA to do a little bit of a career change. And she was saying that acting is just the emotional intelligence you develop, learning how to play different characters, what makes people tick. She was just saying it's been really valuable for her in sales. And I kind of say that entrepreneurship is one big game of selling. You're either selling yourself or your business or your software or whatever. So that it feels like would transition incredibly well to building a company.
Mike, I think that's really astute. And it never occurred to me until more recently. And I was like, wow, I actually think that those, 12-hour days, rehearsals going till midnight, being in rehearsal for 12 hours a day on the weekend, I had absolutely no college life and didn't expect to. And so it set a really low bar for me in life in terms of like this work-life balance thing. I don't have that. I don't think there should be one. At least I don't expect it for myself. And so that's probably been good for me also, right?
Yeah.
The discipline to learn 80 pages of lines a day is just really daunting now that I think about it now. I would not want to go back and do that, and having one or two takes in front of a camera where you have 70 people spending, millions of dollars an hour on the production. It's such high pressure, not to mention like auditioning is as well. So all that to say, you get a nice thick skin, you learn how to hopefully speak eloquently to some extent, tell a good story. And then I think you're right. You have to like people, and that translates well.
That's, I think, something not understood. Sorry for delving into acting a little bit more, but actors and actresses get paid really well. It's a hard job. It's high pressure. You're learning, 80 pages a day. I couldn't do that. That's a hard job. And then you have a lot of pressure, the pressure of auditioning. And I actually used to audit the entertainment world. And so I'd see, one of my favorite parts was auditing the contracts and seeing what everyone was getting paid as part of it. And you're like, whoa, okay. Jason Bateman made that much for how many weeks of work or whatever. But as I started asking around, they're like, it's kind of worth it. The job is not easy. It's a really difficult skill to have. And it's, it's high pressure with everything. So very cool.
True enough.
So like, okay, you started just going to hackathons on the West Side all of a sudden. What piqued your interest to start doing that? Because that is a nerdy scene. I've been to a couple hackathons, and
nerdy scene.
That is a different scene.
So much fun. Yes, it's so fun though. Admittedly, when I did this, and again, it was like five years ago at least, I was typically the only woman. Maybe there'd be like a fellow lady in the setup, but it was pretty much dudes, and for sure, like nerdy, really brilliant folks who speak computer way better than I'll ever be able to. But I was really entranced and kind of intrigued with it. My brother's an engineer. My dad was an inventor and an entrepreneur. So I grew up like putting together little hacky websites with my brother when you have to like upload via the FTP server and everything.
Okay.
And so, so I always thought it was fun and cool. So I just started doing it. I saw one advertised. It was like an AT&T hackathon, and I went. It was fun. And I got to participate. And then I actually started winning a lot of them. So with a team, not myself.
Can you explain what a hackathon is for the audience? It's not a well understood thing in finance and accounting.
Totally. Yeah. What would you do as a finance and accounting hackathon? I have no idea. But in tech,
it would be like, we have this busted process. We got to fix it. That's who has the best idea. Okay, so go ahead.
Oh my God. I'm envisioning like I pull out my TI-83 calculator and go to town or something really old school.
The good old days, the TI-83.
Mm-hmm. I do remember that. So basically a hackathon is a period of time, usually 24 to 48 hours, where you gather a group of competing engineers or even teams. I usually did teams, and you would form a team and create some like small business idea or small application, and you would code it and show that it worked, and then pitch it in front of a bunch of judges, and usually win some nice money.
Yep, there we go. So it's a very cool, it's a pretty intense event, and I think the idea is kind of what's the minimal effort you can put into launching something that actually could provide value for a user?
That's exactly right. Exactly right, Mike. And you also, it is intense. You don't sleep. So you're up for 24 hours. You might take a nap while your other team, but you have it's intensely competitive and you have a limited time. So it's kind of an all night thing. And we made little apps. We made something called the Butler Company, where we like deliver stuff to you before all the delivery apps were out there. We did a ton of fun stuff. Anyway,
any that you really liked, like particularly want to tell the audience about?
Sure. Yeah. Somebody should make this. It's called, the app at the time was called It's a Date, and it was for like lazy dudes to plan dates or lazy women too. But most women that I associate aren't as lazy. So basically it's like a little black book. So you basically have a little slider for how romantic you want the date to be, from coffee to roses. You put in how much you want to spend, you put in your location, and then you pick like one other setting, and then you basically put book, and it spits out one iteration of a cool date that fits in your parameters. And you could say book again or different option, and they would spin up a different one. So it could be like a coffee shop or a movie or whatever. Yeah. And then you book it in.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. For the guys who don't know how to be romantic, that's a very cool idea.
Exactly.
Someone in the audience do it. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I made it with my ex-boyfriend when he was my ex-boyfriend at the time. We were buddies, but I really made it for him.
Like this could have helped a lot.
Exactly right. Yeah, pretty much.
So what was the first idea that you came about where it was like, let's put some effort into pursuing this?
Yeah. Well, my first business was actually a digital media agency more. So it was the production company that made digital content that was specifically designed to appeal to millennials.
Okay.
So, and again, about 5 years ago, but there was a very specific format that you would want to use. Not long form, very short form. That was like Vine had just happened and everybody had gotten used to these very, very little snippets of content.
Right.
So we did stuff for, we sold campaigns like Crazy Glue and Post-it notes, 3M, the parent company, Kimberly-Clark, a bunch of really fun stuff. So that was the entrepreneurial entry into tech. Plus then the hackathoning, that's how I actually got into tech proper versus just continuing to do more digital content stuff.
So a services business, I like to talk
Yeah.
about this a lot because it requires a lot of hustle, but it does seem to
Mhm.
be a type of business where you can get to cash flow positive rather quickly versus a tech company where you're sort of
Yep.
hemorrhaging cash into building a piece of software. So were
Yes.
you able, were you able to be cash flow positive out the gate? And how did you
Yep.
hire people and build the company?
Oh, I was totally cash flow positive out the gate. We didn't need to take debt or anything. We just financed it as we went because we'd
Yeah.
sell one project and then start the next. And we did it on such a shoestring, really, at the time. I had a secret weapon, though. I knew incredible actors who weren't always working and sometimes would do these fun little sketches.
Oh,
Um, and I also knew like DPs, directors of photography, the cameramen,
yeah.
tons of them who had their own gear who would come shoot. Because again, the weird thing about the entertainment industry is it's incredibly cyclical. So you might have 6 months of really intense shooting for a show and then like have months of nothing. So that's how we were
Very
able to
interesting.
do it. Yeah. And I got to work with my friends, which I've always really enjoyed.
Yeah. Okay. That's very cool. So that's, applicable in accounting as well. I would say if you
Mm-hmm.
have a good stable of subcontractors who specialize in things and can really deliver value, you can get paid for bringing those people to the table and bringing them together
Smart.
and putting
Smart.
something. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Very
Very
smart.
nice. So then onto a higher risk endeavor. Where did
Yeah.
Klickly come from there?
I had this idea. So I actually had started a second company at the time, which was fun. And we did this incredible pilot. The beta was going really well. And then I had the idea for Klickly. I was hanging out with my engineers. I was on my phone. I was reading some article on HuffPost, and suddenly this ad pops up in front of my face, right on the phone.
Yeah.
And it was the cutest pair of shoes, and they were like on this incredible deal. And I was like, dang it, like, fine, you got me. Like, I want these things. I'm gonna go buy them. Let's do this. So I click the ad. It then spins up this page. It takes forever to load, and then it takes me through page after page of this like really annoying process. And I didn't even want to leave my article on HuffPost in the first place. So I
Okay.
turned to my engineers and I'm like, wow, that was a very, what we would call friction filled experience,
Yeah.
right? It really did everything it could to like prevent me from actually buying the shoes.
Wow.
And I thought about, I turned to my engineers and I was like, wow, you know, we live in a world where historically you couldn't put a purchase button in an ad, right? Advertising and e-commerce couldn't be the same, but why couldn't they now? And so we set about kind of really shrinking the differences between what is considered advertising and marketing and e-commerce itself. So basically put a buy button in the ad and patented a technology that allows you to purchase directly in the ad itself, never leaving your HuffPost page. So
Okay. So what
yeah,
what what changed? Why were you able to do that recently?
well, just technology. So technology itself has, Moore's law. It's like technology just compounds, and the information it has compounds and compounds. And as an example of what I'm talking about, if you tried to build an app, just a very simple application in the 80s or 90s or something, it would have cost you, depending on if you did well, it would have had to be a computer app then, but it would have cost you like
Mhm.
a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 million bucks
Yeah.
to build an app. Now it's like 25 grand with no code or Bubble or something.
Yeah.
You don't. It's so incredibly, because we have library after library and third party after third party that we're all leveraging now to increase the speed and increase the user experience, at which we can create these technologies. Yeah.
Uh, personally, I think that's a big enabler of people with different backgrounds getting
Yes.
into the tech world recently,
It's
right?
huge.
I feel like if you go back in time when it cost you 10 million bucks to build software, it was either some, former VP of somewhere who could convince their friends to give them money, or it was an engineer who could build it on their own. But now it's an actress or an accountant can get
Yeah,
enough funding to get something off the ground, prove it, and then go from there. Um,
exactly.
how did you prove out Klickly? And I'd love to walk through the journey.
Yeah, so it's so interesting. I basically got this incredible guy named Mike, who to this day I'm like, thank you for Mike. Um, he was an engineer, and I honestly don't remember how we connected, but he offered to help me build the first what we would call prototype,
Okay.
also called MVP, minimally viable product, right? So
Yep.
you don't want to go full fledged. You just want to build the smallest little thing that'll help you prove that it works and then raise money.
Yep.
Um, so Mike, awesome dude that he was so incredible. He said, Cooper, I can't build this for you for free because you need to pay me at least $1 so that you own the IP. Because if you don't own the IP and you take this to investors later, you'll never be able to raise money. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's okay. Very
So
astute and nice and forward thinking of him.
yeah, he was amazing. And so he taught me about IP assignment and why that was really important to own the intellectual property around what it is you're building.
Okay.
And so he built me an MVP. I went to New York. I raised some money from friends I'd known from, like, I don't know, the producers of The Vampire Diaries and Gossip Girl, funnily
Okay.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they got me a cool LOI as well. I got an LOI from Atom Factory, which was the company that Troy Carter started, Lady Gaga's manager.
Okay.
So a bunch of like entertainment facing entities and some brands. And from those LOIs, letters of intent, saying they would use my product and when it was done, and my really hacky MVP, minimally viable product that showed like this could happen one day.
Yeah.
I raised a very, very small seed round.
And that's sort of, yep, that's how you make it happen. You show enough progress to get folks comfortable with giving you money. And an LOI is a great step in that. You know, if you come with a product that provides value and someone's committing to giving you money as soon as it's sort of commercially available, I think investors start to feel good about that.
Exactly.
That world.
It's a hugely underutilized tool, LOIs.
Yeah. That's, hey, I didn't use them. So good call. And so you raised some money. Was it from now institutions or accelerators or seed funds, still from individuals?
It was from angels, super angels. Yeah.
Okay. And
a small fund. That's true. 2 small funds.
One small fund. But did they I guess where I want to go is, did it become businessy after that? Did it change now that you had investors, or was it like kind of you still running the show?
I mean, they still let me do my books on a cash basis. So, you know what I mean? It wasn't that businessy.
Yeah.
Right. They, no, they actually, at that point, because it wasn't enough money to justify like starting an actual board, I would have called it a very, pre-seed. I basically got a tiny office in the back of my friend's office. So he ran a company called Park Me at the time in Santa Monica. And so Sam let me rent this room in the back of Park Me. So when people came in, it looked like I had this massive like 50-person team, and I just happened to have the back office. It was hilarious.
Nice.
So yeah, and then we went to town and we got, one of our first campaigns was actually with Eminem, the rapper. Yeah, and so we sold his merch. It all went to like a good cause. Yeah, he's actually a really cool dude.
Was that the first contract? Like, I'm curious, where'd your first dollar of revenue come from?
It was one of the first. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yep. So, and them and Habitat for Humanity, and we started off with a lot of like social good stuff because it was, and it still is something that's important to me. But I just figured they really often need help and would beta test with us, and they did.
Oh, interesting. Okay. There's a little less budget and they're more open to trying things out as they're getting built?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And then we opened it up to other brands through like the YEC. I'm part of this group called Young Entrepreneurs Community Collective. I don't know, YEC. It's super cool. So I got a bunch of them to test it shortly thereafter, did a partnership with companies like Shopify, Magento, and then kind of went hardcore, pedal to the metal, went from 0 to 200 brand clients, customers, to then like over 1,000 really, really fast in like a year and a half.
Wow. Do you have a sales team? I'd love to hear, like, what does a sales cycle look like for you and what's the customer relationship afterwards?
So what's so interesting, Mike, is we have a really weird, unique business model. So rather than asking people to pay upfront, we have enough data. We call our platform a sales e-commerce engine. Okay. So we are generating customer acquisition for our customers, for our brands. They simply jump on the platform, they load their products, they tell us what to promote, and then they tell us how much commission they're willing to give us when we make a sale of X product. And that commission is completely up to them. It is what would be a accounting and financial nightmare, except that everything is handled by algorithms, right?
Yeah.
So everything's algorithmic. So on the back end, then, if a brand chooses to do, wants to pay us 1, 2, 3%, our algorithms say, we will probably not show you very much.
Okay.
Because the likelihood of us getting a sale to back out for that very low amount is less. Whereas if a brand says, hey, no, I want to get aggressive, I want to acquire my customer, and I want to break even on my customer acquisition, at least the first one. This is very prevalent for subscription companies or VC-backed D2C brands that are growing really fast. They just want to break even and grow. because they know the LTV, the lifetime value of their customer,
Right.
will back out on the end once they acquire them. So good companies will get very aggressive, and they can give us up to 100% of that first sale that we drive for them. And then our
Wow.
algorithms get really excited and go to town. Yep.
So is that a Dutch auction? I'm gonna mess up my
I don't
phrasing
know.
here. Where
I
guess
actually don't know. I should look that up.
no, it's interesting.
But it is auction-like.
I think you've kind of done that. Yeah, it's like a blind bid, and then you go out and
Mhm.
select whoever has bidded the most effectively, and then there are a zillion parameters that go into that. Presumably, like you need to
That's
understand what the item costs, right?
Yes.
To just
Exactly.
I can't imagine the amount of data you're dealing with. So you have what, thousands of brands with X numbers of
Yeah.
goods
A
per
million
brand, and then
SKUs.
is it a
Mhm.
million SKUs you're managing?
Roughly.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a lot.
All right, not to
Yeah.
get the nerdy accounting in me. How do you bill?
Uh-huh.
How do you how do you actually collect your money?
We actually do it daily. So we don't do it per transaction, but it is, it is relatively real time, which is pretty cool.
Oh, okay. So it's like credit card billing. You kind of
Mhm.
you roll up all the transactions in one day, and it hits your bank
Mhm.
account.
Yep.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful
For
thing.
large brands, we'll do fewer transactions farther apart, but only for like tier 1 brands that are really, yeah.
Like manual billing. They want a bill every quarter or 30 days or whatever it is.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Well, that's very cool. So how big is the company now in terms of employees? How many brands do you have today? And how
Yeah,
much money have you raised additional capital?
we've raised about 3 rounds total from like real VCs, and also like the CTO of Stripe, the head of innovation at Google, the Warby team, the Bombas Socks team. So we've really tried to pull in, I would consider them incredible experts, in addition to investors who can actually, lend their expertise to bring it to bear on the company's success. And honestly, I pull on these people all the time. Like I had the head of digital from ICM, awesome guy. Like I have biweekly calls with him.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
I milk it for all it's worth. Yeah.
Well, the CTO of Stripe is having a good day. It's March. Here we are, March 16th, 2021, and they just raised a round at a $95 billion valuation.
So excited for them.
Yeah, I think he's having it's been a good month or so for them as they've been closing the round in the background.
Yep,
so,
indeed.
That's a really interesting point you bring up is getting, advisors or board members who can actually help with stuff. Yeah. What were you looking for when you were seeking out board members?
Expertise, but in specific areas. So I really wanted to have like a couple brands who would represent our, the coolest, sexiest D2C brands out there. So obviously Warby is one, obviously Bombas Socks is one. So, those were great targets for me. I think, we really wanted someone at Google because of they do everything. So that was really important to me. David is just an engineering genius and has a background in payments, so that was important. And I think we really thought of it that way. The former head of digital ICM, again, like he's worked with every like influencer in the world, but also every digital brand and helped them grow their digital prowess, if you will, from a very big agency. So
what is ICM? I don't think our audience is going to be
aware.
Oh,
no worries.
Surprisingly, I am aware, but
yeah. Well, that's because you're in LA.
Yeah, exactly.
CAA, ICM are probably the largest 2 agencies, like talent agencies in the world. And for anyone in entertainment, they represent kind of the Goliaths in a good way, probably, for representation.
And they're like across the street from each other, right? In Century City. Yeah. I actually audited ICM, oddly enough, back in the day. And
it was awesome.
A competitive vibe.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hugely. And the cool thing is like, they don't just represent like the movie stars that you think of, although they do, but they also represent, YouTubers and influencers and brands and starting to like entrepreneurs a little bit.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's after my day. I was auditing ages ago when it was purely actor, musicians, stuff like that.
Sports players too, of course.
Athletes, yep, for sure. It's people get good money for speaking engagements. That's always interesting to find out about.
Yep, indeed.
Yeah, so let's. I know you've expanded beyond entrepreneurship, and Klickly at this point you're involved in investing. I believe an author, speaker, and whatnot. So tell us more about your other endeavors.
Yeah, I do have to disclose and say that while I know that a lot of entrepreneurs will do like 2, 3, 4 projects at the same time and like be spinning up this company and that company, that is not me at all. I have an enormous sense of responsibility and like pressure, because I've taken millions of dollars of other people's money. So I actually think that, well, I do other things, and mostly on the weekends. I do think it's really important to state that, like, you see a lot of glitzy entrepreneurs running around building 4, 5, 6 companies. I actually don't think that's real or possible. That's my own personal viewpoint, and I stick to it.
Well, and you can do it. It doesn't mean you're doing it well.
Well, exactly. And is it real? And I can pop up an LLC for $800 and call it a business and put it on LinkedIn, but it doesn't mean that it's actually providing value for anyone or generating revenue.
I could not agree more. I think committing to what you're working on is the best way at optimizing your chance of success. So
yeah.
So it's sort of like side hustles for you or side hobbies for you, but really you are focused on Klickly.
Yeah, and the other things I do, I think are like complementary as opposed to being like cannibalistic.
Yes.
Yeah. So I do I do write for Forbes and Econ Entrepreneur, but I write about my expertise, and ultimately that actually gets us clients too, but it's also helpful. So I also see it's like a little bit of giving back perhaps. And I do a lot of mentoring, but I do it on weekends. So I have like a Saturday block where I like have advisor calls with folks that I'm helping.
Okay.
Hopefully I'm helping them, but I call them and I talk to them. And then I have, I have done a lot of writing, but again, always about like entrepreneurship, building businesses, and et cetera. And I do a lot of speaking as well, but inevitably, again, it's about like how e-commerce is changing, how machine learning impacts things like e-commerce and advertising and data and all that good stuff. So yeah.
Okay, I'm pretty similar. I got a book and speak, but it's all accounting related, and so really it's driving it. How do we build FloQast and make it into the best business possible?
Amazing. Yeah, exactly right.
So any our audience, a lot of finance and accounting folks, perhaps some interest in entrepreneurship. What advice would you have for the audience as they think about transitioning careers in a pretty extreme way, similar to what you did?
Yeah, I would say I don't know what could be more extreme, from like sitcom actress to tech CEO.
Yep.
but you can, you really can do it. And if I had thought about it more, I probably wouldn't have. I made the decision. And then because I had no plan B, I had no fallback option at all. Similarly with acting, I just decided I was going to do it. And then I dove deep and did one foot in front of the other. So baby steps, just do the next day. And then I'd look up in 3 months and see, had I hit those KPIs that I had set out to do. So did I have a website? Did I have 3 people working with me? And had I raised X amount of money? And then if I had, I'd be like, okay, what are these next milestones or KPIs I want to hit 3 months later, the next quarter? And I'd like go deep. And if you look at the full picture and are too realistic, you will be daunted. So if you make the decision you want to go for it, I think you should just throw realism away and try.
Yeah. So with goal setting, you're pretty defined with that. Then you have a date out front, and you just said, I want to have a website and three employees. Yep. I love goal setting, and then taking a step back and we're going day by day to achieve that goal. I'll admit though, I'm not quite as good at like deadline setting for myself. I have big audacious goals, and then it's like, let's back into how to make that happen. And I'm not necessarily too great about deadlines. So do you just kind of run your life that way?
Yes, but I don't just hold myself to it. So as an example, if I put a deadline just for myself to get something done and just put it in my calendar, which I've done before, it's way less effective than if I say, okay, I want to get these 3 chapters written, and then I plan a meeting with like my mom to review them, or like my fiance to like go over them, and I say, hey, I'm going to present these to you, and I make it all formal. That to me is a lot. It just like it makes them my accountability buddy without them realizing it.
No, that's awesome. That's very cool. Yeah, because like peer pressure is one of the best forms of pressure out there, and you're effectively forcing peer pressure on yourself.
Exactly right. Yep. Because if I'm gonna do it, I don't want to do it in like a lazy, lethargic, kind of drawn out way. I want to do it effectively, efficiently, and the best way I can.
That's like, one of the things that I've noticed being really effective is kind of artificial deadlines. They might seem artificial, but they're not really. Like one that always works well for us at FloQast is user conference, or when we have conferences that we're sponsoring. It's like always a good event for driving things. Not everyone responds well to. arbitrary end of quarter type deadlines.
Right.
That's a good sales motivator because that's when your commission checks are due and all that stuff. But not everyone necessarily is motivated by a date. Some people are more event driven.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yep. Makes a ton of sense.
All right. Well, I've really enjoyed the conversation. I think the acting transition is fascinating, and your ability to figure it out along the way is super inspirational. And I would say is a big part of why you're here today. So thank you so much for joining. Were there any last comments you wanted to offer for the audience?
Yeah, sure. Two. One is my favorite quote in the world, and I talk about it all the time, but it's this: whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Oh, and wow. I really believe that. And I think it's Goethe. And I think that, part of it really is, it's just starting. When we make crazy inventions, or like Elon tries to go to Mars, like, of course, none of this has ever been done before, but declaring that you want to do it, whether it's yourself or a group, is powerful. And then taking actions consistently.
Yeah.
That's the best way to get there.
Consistent actions with a dream.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cooper. Really appreciate your time today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Mike, so much. This is fun.